So Luke, on Sunday, I'm going to be talking about financial stewardship. In fact, I'm going to be speaking from kind of that classic text in the Old Testament in Malachi about giving and tithing and what all that means.
Malachi. There's a passage in Malachi, you might not know this, but it's the only place in Scripture where we're told to test God. You should look that up. What's that all about?
Yeah, maybe Saturday night when I'm preparing my sermon, I'll take your insight to mind there.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is. It's the only place in Malachi or in the Bible where we are allowed to test God in any way, shape, or form. In fact, in any place else in Scripture that you're testing God, you're really backing up, and it's a sin. But in Malachi, God says that we can, if we don't trust Him, we can test Him with our financial giving by tithing. The reason is, and it's really an expression of God's tremendous grace. God knows that money is the hardest area in our lives to trust Him with. It's kind of ironic we will trust God with our eternity, but we struggle in trusting God with our finances. And so God says, if you don't trust me here in this one area, I'm going to give you the grace to allow you to test me. I remember a number of years back when I was serving in another church, I preached on tithing. And I challenged people with the same challenge I'm going to issue this Sunday to the people at Hollins. I said, if you're not tithing and you're afraid to tithe, then put God to the test for 90 days. Take a trust test. Put God first in your finances for these 90 days and just see what God does. Well, there was a guy in the church named Charlie, big guy, football player at the University of Mississippi. And he heard the sermon, and he and his wife decided they were going to do that they would tithe for the next 90 days. Then something amazing happened right after they made that decision. Something absolutely unforeseen happened the very next day.
She lost her job.
She lost her job. Absolutely. And Charlie said, we were at a crisis. But the interesting thing is that Charlie started coming to me, and I didn't know that story yet, but he started coming to me several months later and said, Greg, I want to talk about tithing in church. I said, well, Charlie, we're going to do that in October. He came to me 2 or 3 more times and said, Charlie, I promise you, the day I speak about tithing, I'm going to let you talk. I mean, you don't say no to a former lineman who towers over you when he wants to talk about giving. Well, he stood up and he told that very story about how his wife lost her job. They sat at their table and they discussed their options. One is that they could immediately break that promise that they made to God, break that commitment. Or they could say, we're going to see this through. We don't know how this is going to work. We don't know how God's going to see us through this crisis, but we're going to stay the course, and we're going to keep our commitment to tithe for the next 90 days. Charlie stood before the congregation and told the story of how God had filled in the gaps, how God had provided for them. And in light of that experience, they were still tithing.
Wow. Well, I hope you can come and join us this Sunday as we talk about how we can steward what God has given us. God bless, and we'll see you Sunday.